this line is trying to tell you that the Packers are out of the playoffs and they're not going to try to win this game. That's what this line is telling you. I beg to differ here. The Packers still haven't completely proven that Coach McCarthy was the problem, and they still have to show the NFL fans that they can be a great team. Okay? You know, they had that one win against Atlanta, but losing to the Bears, they're not going to go out like that. Many of these Packer players will also be auditioning for next year to retain their jobs at Green Bay or their next football teams, right? This line should be the Packers favored by 3 minimum, in my opinion. The Jets are one of the worst teams in football when it comes to NFL efficiency. They're like in the bottom 5 or 6. I see this more of a bounce back spot for the Packers more than a letdown spot. I expect Aaron Rodgers to play. He's got to show everyone how tough he is, of course. I'm taking the Packers here, laying the 2 points, or pick them, or whatever you can get. All the way up to 3.5 is where I like this game. The next one is Baltimore versus the LA Chargers. Chargers laying 4.5 points. This line is wrong. And I think it's because the odds makers do not know which direction it's going to go. Will it be 6? Will it be 3? Well, the line should be a 3 or less, and here is why. Baltimore has the second best defense in football this year. And we all know defense travels. LA's home field advantage is not 3 points. Power ratings have the Chargers only 1 to 1.5 points better on a neutral field over the Ravens. Okay, the Ravens are fighting for a playoff spot, while the Chargers have already locked it up. LA is fighting for home field advantage, but if you compare a dog fighting for a ham bone over a dog fighting for its life, I'm going to go with the latter. The Chargers are on a little more rest, but they also are in a huge letdown spot from beating the Chiefs. The Ravens almost beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead recently themselves, and they are now going to a more welcoming stadium. Now, if this isn't enough for you, then you probably do not like situational betting. I am taking the Baltimore Ravens plus 4.5 points. Chicago versus San Francisco. San Francisco is getting 4 points. Well, you guys by now know that I'm a Bear fan and where I'm going to go with this one, right? That's right. We are taking the Niners. The Bears just finished winning their second, or actually I would say their 2 biggest games of the year. I want to put Packers second. I would say the Rams and the Packers were back-to-back their biggest games, and they just won them in a row. Maybe these games were the biggest in some of these players' lives, except for guys like Eddie Jackson that played for Alabama. But I think a letdown here is inevitable. You know, the Bears have 4 losses, and the Rams have 3. They are, in theory, still hopeful for a first-round bye, but if you look at who the Rams have to play in the Cardinals and at home versus the Niners, you know very well that it's looking like the Bears will play the 6th seed wild card team at home the first week of the playoffs. The Bears got a little banged up last week with Eddie Jackson and Aaron Lynch out a few weeks. And I don't think the Bears will want to risk the farm to beat the 49ers. I just don't. Not only is this a letdown spot for the Bears, but it's also a sandwich spot because they have to travel to Minnesota the following week to attempt to take the Vikings out of the playoff hunt. Many of the 49ers team is still playing for spots on next year's roster, and I think Shanahan would like this victory just as much as he would like the next week one against the Rams. Power ratings have the Bears by 5.5 points, but I think they could barely win this game due to the spot or even lose and not even bat an eyelash. I'm taking San Francisco plus 4 points. We also have a teaser for you. The Raiders, we're going to tease them to 8.5 with the Steelers to 11.5. Get to pass all those juicy key numbers. This may be the last Raiders game in Oakland. While the Steelers actually may need to win out to secure a playoff spot or division over the Ravens here. Okay? So I expect to see effort, even though the Steelers are playing at New Orleans and Oakland's playing a decimated, beat up Denver team that may actually just mail one in because they just got taken out of the playoffs by Cleveland last year. So those are our NFL plays. Hope you enjoyed them. Hope you all make some money. And now let's get right into
the sharp side of the force.
The sharp side of the force is brought to you by uwager.eu. Please visit the oddsbreakers.com/uwager for a 50% sign up bonus. All right, let's see where the money's at this week for some of these bowl games and NFL. We have dual action on Troy versus Buffalo. Went all the way down to -1.5 now. And we're on Buffalo, so we disagree with that movement. Sharp money on Louisiana Tech versus Hawaii, +1. Action on Boston College, +3.5 to +2.5 versus Boise State. Sharp action, dual action actually on Georgia Tech from -3 to -5 versus Minnesota. Both the public and the sharps like Georgia Tech. Baylor +6.5 down to +4 versus Vanderbilt. It's actually a little lower. There might have been some buyback there. Syracuse versus West Virginia, +7 all the way down to +1. And that thing's going to keep going, as we said before. Iowa State +6.5 down to +3 versus Washington State. Michigan State +3 versus Oregon. Dual action on Texas A&M versus NC State. And dual action on Ohio State -6.5 versus Washington. Sharp totals. Dual action on Toledo versus Florida International from 66.5 down to 59 due to the big wind storm. Western Michigan versus BYU under 50. Sharp. Memphis versus Wake Forest under from 75 down to 73. There was a late move there. Some groups hit the under in that game. Troy versus Buffalo under from 53.5 down to 49.5. Dual action on Louisiana Tech over 60 to 61. Georgia Tech versus Minnesota under 61 to 57.5. TCU versus Cal under 41 to 39.5. Damn, that's low. Duke versus Temple under 56.5 down to 54.5. Dual action on the Wisconsin versus Miami under 48. Dual action on the Vanderbilt versus Baylor over 55. West Virginia versus Syracuse under 74 down to 67. Cincinnati versus Virginia Tech under 53.5. And that's a 58% difference between ticket count and money. Dual action on LSU versus Central Florida over from 54 to 55. Washington versus Ohio State under 58. Sharp NFL. Tampa Bay +7 at Dallas. New York Giants +9 at Indianapolis. Detroit +6 down to +5.5 hosting the Vikings. And Baltimore +4.5 at San Diego, a 33% difference between tickets and money. NFL totals. Tampa versus Dallas over 46 to 47.5. Atlanta versus Carolina under 43.5. Washington versus Tennessee under 37. A 58% difference between ticket count and money. Under 37. That is low. Maybe they don't think Washington's going to score. Not that Tennessee scores much. Well, they have a few games, but we'll see. New York Giants versus Indianapolis over 47. And that's a 43% difference between the ticket count and the money. I like the over. Dual action on Houston versus Philly over 46. Cincinnati versus Cleveland under 46 to 44.5. Dual action on the LA Rams versus Arizona Cardinals under from 47.5 to 44.5. Dual action on the Baltimore Ravens versus the LA Chargers, 45 down to 43.5. So that was the under. And that's what we have. You know, that Colts one, I think it's because the dome, 47 over 47, and that big of a difference. Must be the dome. All right. Without further ado, let's bring on Kyle Hunter. Now, I'm very excited to welcome back a very accomplished handicapper, Kyle Hunter from HunterSportsPicks.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks. How you doing, Kyle? How's this holiday season treating you?
Doing well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all these bowl games. It's pretty nice to be able to have the holiday season and all those bowl games going on. I love this time of the year.
Oh, absolutely. It kind of makes the whole getting off work thing for people a lot easier. You get home and you get to, instead of doing nothing, you possibly have a bowl game on after Christmas. You have a nice little streak going on there. But yeah, man, a lot of sickness going around. I think you experienced a little bit of it. I still have a cold myself, so trying to shake that. Hopefully our listeners out there aren't getting too sick and can really buckle down and enjoy some of these games.
Yeah, that's one of the downside to this time of the year is that while it can be great to have that many bowl games going on, it's a busy time of the year and sicknesses go around pretty heavily. So I'm feeling better. Hopefully you'll get feeling better soon, and hope everybody can have a nice holiday season and bowl season.
Absolutely, my man. Well, let's get right into it then. What are some of the rules of thumb that our listeners should use before betting these bowl games?
So I think the first thing you need to realize is that bowl season betting is a lot different than regular season. If you use the same mindset that you use in the regular season for bowl season, you're not going to do very well in the long run. This is a time of the year where motivation means more than anything else. And you're going to hear that from a lot of people, motivation, who's motivated to be there. Obviously the question is, and I've had people ask me this even in the last week or two, how do you handicap motivation? Well, it's not the easiest thing to handicap. I mean, if you could just say, I know that this team's motivated and I know this team's not motivated, then it'd be too easy. You just say everybody could win. Obviously, there's not really a point value you can put on motivation, and there's not a clear-cut, more motivated team some of the time. But I think that's where, reading between the lines can be pretty important. And, looking at those beat writers on Twitter, reading a little bit of extra, you can find some interesting nuggets there. You can find some teams saying, man, we've lost our last couple bowl games. This game means everything to us. Mm-hmm. And then you have another team that says, the last couple years we were here at a really big bowl game. Now we're here. It's not the greatest bowl game, but we're going to try to make the best of it. That's a situation where it should be a red flag to you. So I think that the first thing I would say would be motivation, although I will say that motivation is not really easy to handicap. And then the second thing I'll say that I think is second most important